most famous graduate, and a true cardinal, David Letterman.
Thank you very much for being here. This is my third visit in this capacity, and when I look out at this audience, I have the same thought each time: we really should charge for tickets. Guy goes into a bar. He says to the bartender, "I want 15 shots of your most expensive whiskey." The bartender says, "I don't know if we can do that. I can let you have the bottle." And the guy says, "No, I want 15 shots. Line them up. 15 shot glasses. Line them up now." The bartender says, "Okay," and starts pouring out the shots. The guy goes nuts. 1, 2, slamming them down. 3, 4, 5. Gets to 6, and the bartender says, hey. I don't want to tell you how to do your business, but you might want to take it easy. Why are you drinking this way?" And the guy says, "Look, pal, you'd be drinking this way too if you had what I had." And the bartender says, "Oh, geez, I'm sorry, what do you have?" And the guy says, $1. Thank you very much. I don't want to waste a lot of time yammering here. I'm very excited about this. I have very specific, very vivid feelings about our guest this afternoon. I'll tell you one little story about my son, because when you have a son, you can tell stories about him. And he's 9 years old, and as a parent, you're worried about the influences of life and turning the kid loose in society and the world. So my wife and my son were having dinner, and I had heard things from other kids about language kids were using. And I said, "Harry, you know anything about dirty words?" And Harry said, "Well, I know 3. He said, I know the S word, I know the F word, and I know the D word." And I said, "Okay." So now this is one of those moments, because you don't know how this is going. Harry, what is the S word? Stupid! All right, we're off to a good start. Harry, what is the F word? Fat! I'm home free now. I said, "Harry, what is the D word? Idiot!" I know what you're thinking to yourselves. He's a very bright boy. Listen to this. A few years ago, the New York Times wrote a front-page story about Saudi Arabia, a country where women's rights are severely restricted. The Oprah Winfrey Show was not only the highest-rated program for women, it was helping Saudi women find meaning in their lives. No matter how restricted or even abusive their circumstance may be, the Times wrote, her show teaches that they can take control in small ways and create lives of value and help them find meaning. the back of my mind, and this will tell you more about my ego than you want to know, I always hope that through this speaking engagement program, it might have meaning for someone. So big meaning, small meaning, and I don't know that we've achieved that. I have a feeling that tonight we probably will. So thank you very much. We have questions from people in the audience and people outside tweeting and so on and so forth. And when I see a question that I think is better than a question I have, I'll go right to it.
Where are you seeing
it? Hasn't happened yet.
Where are you seeing it? How is it working?
A guy was running up. Principal caregiver, 3 years old.
Because born out of wedlock, which at the time was like, it was terrible to be born out of wedlock. My father met my mother in school. He says to this day, if you say, well, I just asked him a couple weeks ago, well, did you ever love her? He goes, no, she was wearing a poodle skirt. He goes, and I wanted to know what was under that poodle skirt. Came down to that. And he convinced her to have sex with me after school one day, under some oak trees. And he says he remembers the leaves being on her back of her skirt and having to explain that to my grandmother. And that was it. They never went out again. They never saw each other again. When I was born, my mother sent him, he had gone into the army, and she sent him a note saying, send money. You have a daughter. She's been doing the same thing since, my mother.
And your grandmother, strict, nurturing?
Very strict. Very strict. So I was raised in an environment that would clearly be called abusive today. I was raised in an environment where children should be seen and not heard. That was the adage in the house.
You were struck. When you say abusive?
Oh, I was beaten regularly. I remember one of my most vivid memories of getting beaten was my grandmother was very religious, and we were in church all the time. And I remember being beaten, and because I had gone to the well to get some water. You all may not know what a well is, but gone to the well to get some water. We carried it in a bucket, and I was playing with my fingers in the water. And my grandmother had seen me out the window playing, and she didn't like it. And she whipped me before church, and whipped me so badly that I had welts on my back. So we'd have welts, and the welts would bleed. And then when I put on my Sunday dress, I was bleeding from the welts. And then she was very upset with me because I got blood on the dress. So I remember getting another whipping for getting the blood on the dress. And I was raised in an environment where you're not allowed to even, hopefully nobody was in an environment this bad, where even when you are then punished, you're not allowed to have any feelings about the punishment. So while my grandmother was whipping me, she'd say, and you better hush your mouth, you better stop that. And if you would have, your feelings are hurt when you're beat. And if I would say, or not say anything, but would look like I was upset that I just got beaten, I could very well get a whipping again. So you had to act like it.
What happens to you now? Same thing, or it's something different?
No, your call is different than my call. I think we could talk about your call.
No, but if this happened to you, if your upbringing had been different, would you still be what you are?
Definitely would not.
Would not be?
Definitely would not be. I would not be here. Had I not had the pressure and all, that's why I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for my years literally living in poverty, because it makes the experience of creating success and building success that more rewarding for me. And I know a lot of wealthy people. I know people who've had, trust funds and families that were supposedly there for them, who are not as balanced, who are not as centered, and who do not have the peace that I have. Because ultimately, I think there is no success in your life unless there is also a sense of centeredness.
Right. But listen to this.
Yeah.
There's the other side of that coin. Your story, your growing up, your upbringing, rural Mississippi in the 50s.
Yeah.
Not unique.
Yeah.
not everybody who endured and suffered the same treatment turned out to be you.
Yeah.
So
You know, the difference
many
is,
people are broken and don't come back from it.
yeah, this is the thing. Some of it's nature and some of it's nurturing. And I got fed the very first time, spiritually fed, the very first time I stood before an audience and recited Jesus Rose on Easter Day, all the angels did proclaim. And I was like 3 years old. And everybody's like, ooh, handmaid, that's my grandmother. Handmaid, this child can talk. This is the time. And so, what I have learned over the years of my 4,650 some shows of the Oprah Winfrey Show and in other experiences, everybody, regardless of their life experience or background, is looking for the same thing. And there's a common thread in every single one of the interviews that I did. And whether I was speaking to, and I've talked to lots of people, whether I talked to the man who went to prison, talked to the man who killed his twin girls. I've talked to people who have molested children. I've talked to, obviously, celebrities. At the end of almost every interview, all of them have said, was I okay? Was I okay? Was I okay? And what I have come to know is that that's what all of us are looking for. Every argument, every fight, every confrontation, every disagreement, it's not about the thing that you're fighting for most times or what it looks like. It's always about what is beneath the surface. And that is, do you hear me? Do you hear me? And is what I'm saying? Gail often says many times, gosh, I don't know why you're not crazy. Well, I'm not crazy because part of it's nature. I was an inquisitive, introspective kid. Tell you this story. I'm trying not to say anything I've said to you before, but I remember very distinctly being on the back porch watching my grandmother boil some clothes because we didn't have a washing machine. So I know I sound like primitive days. We didn't have a washing machine. So she was boiling, we had to boil the clothes to get them clean. And I was looking through the screen, and it was cold because my teeth were chattering, I remember that. And I was churning butter. Sounds like Little House on the Prairie. My grandmother gave me, because that's all you have to do is churn butter. And I was pushing the butter stick up there. And she turned to me and said, Oprah Gail, you better watch me now. Because one of these days you're going to have to learn how to do this for yourself. As she is hanging clothes on the line, she had the clothespin in her mouth, and she's putting the clothespins in her apron. And I remember seeing her through the screen and feeling inside myself, no, I won't. I share that story with you to say you all have that same thing. When my girls first came to school in South Africa in 7th grade, I asked them to tell me of what is that experience that you've held inside yourself, a knowingness. When have you known inside the spirit and heart of yourself what was the truth? And many of them told me stories that were so powerful. So one of them told me that she had known that she was going to come into the school before she knew it was a school. That she could see herself inside a classroom in better. This is a kid who was in a school, in a classroom with over 100 kids. And that she could see that she was going to have a better life, that she wouldn't always be in that crowded space with all those kids. Well, we all have had those moments. And what I try to teach my girls and reinforce with myself is that go to the time you have known the truth, so that when the truth shows up, you will know what it looks like and what it feels like. So that is what has guided my entire life. That feeling that I had at 4 years old on the back porch, looking through the screen at my grandmother. So when I made the decision to leave Nashville and move to Baltimore, it was that same feeling. When everybody said to me, when I moved to Chicago, after being in Baltimore for 8 years, you're going to fail because you're going up against Phil Donahue, who was the leading talk show king at the time. I looked for that feeling, and I said, I'm going to have to go even if I fail. Because if I stay here, a part of me is going to die. And that's how you know. That's what the call, that's what the hero's journey, your personal hero's journey is. You feel like if I don't do it, a part of me is going to suffocate.
Mother to handle, and then you go to Milwaukee.
You got to get me out of Mississippi.
Yeah.
Okay.
What were you?
Milwaukee was terrible.
Well, first of all, what was too much for you to handle? It was too much for your grandmother to handle. What was going on then?
That would be an inaccurate quote, because I became too much for my mother to handle. My grandmother actually became sick and could no longer take care of me. And this is the interesting thing, that voice inside myself again, that everybody has. I got moved, nobody told me, I was given no explanation. This is the only person I've known for 6 years of my life. Imagine this with Harry, 6 years. Now you're just put in a car and you're sent someplace else. You're told you're going to be with your mother, but I really don't know my
Taken from your grandmother and now moved back.
Yeah, I later found out that my grandmother had been in an accident, and that's why I was being sent away, and she could no longer take care of me. But I walk into this home that my mother is renting from a woman named Mrs. Miller in Milwaukee on North 8th Street. And I know instantly when I walk into the house that I'm not welcome there. Now, you all may not know this, there is intra-racism within the race of black people. Intra-racism. Black people know what I'm talking about. So, black people, you know what I'm talking about. So I walk into Miss Miller's house, and she is so light-skinned, she can pass, which at the time, in the 60s, everybody would refer to people like that. Oh, she's passing, or she's not passing. Meaning her skin was so light that if she wanted to, she could get away with passing for white. And I know instantly, even though I've never confronted racism, been around a conversation about race because I'm in rural Mississippi, I know instantly that Miss Miller does not like me. And I know somehow it's because of the color of my skin. And my mother has another daughter by this time, and I'm brought into Miss Miller's house on this night as a 6-year-old girl, basically snatched out of my grandmother's arms. And Miss Miller will not allow me into the house. Miss Miller forces me to sleep on the porch. To this day, it makes me weep, makes me well up, because I just think it's such a cruel thing to do. So Miss Miller said I couldn't come in the house, I had to sleep on the porch. And I was so angry and hoping that my mother would stand up for me and say, well, let her come in and sleep with me, because she should come sleep with me, but my mother did not. So I slept on the little porch before you got into the house. And I created these like imaginary friends and would sing to Jesus and all that to try to keep myself from feeling safe. But I never really, got over the fact that Mrs. Miller did not think that I was good enough to come into the house. And after about a year, my mother moved from Miss Miller's. But, I would always have my dinner at the other end of the table, and they would be sitting and eating. And I knew that it was because...
What year is this?
I was a brown-skinned girl. So I was 6, so it would have been 1960, 61.
1961 in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
That's subhuman behavior.
Well, now I can look back on it and say, well, I know what that feels like to be ostracized. I know what it feels like to be in a room where everybody is talking about you. I know what it feels like. I know. And the reason why I say I would take nothing from my journey is because every one of these life experiences, when I started in television, really created such a bond of empathy with me and the audience. I mean, I know what it feels like to not be wanted. There is almost nothing worse than that, to not be wanted. So then you can relate to other people who feel that way. Instead of walking around in life saying, oh, I wasn't wanted, you create a life, as I have done, that says now I feel very wanted by one of you in the world. But you use that as a stepping stone for your life,
right,
where you can, and it gives you great compassion and empathy for people who haven't had it.
But
you take it, you turn. Read it as I wasn't able to move the needle far enough on abuse in this country, because most people think that the abuse is about the actual sexual act. And I know that the statistics are 1 out of 6 for boys and 1 out of 4 for girls. So I know that we have a room full of people in here who know what I'm talking about. And the mistake that most people make who have not been abused is they think that it's about the act. That's why everybody always says, well, was there penetration? Was there penetration or not? If there wasn't, they feel like, oh, well, it was okay. When you are 4 and 5 and 8 and 9 and 10, and maybe 11 or 12 now, it doesn't matter. It's about the lack of trust, the misuse of trust, and the shame that occurs because that has happened to you. It's the secret that is kept and the shame, and it doesn't matter what form it took. It just means, oh, I now gotta keep the secret, and if I tell anybody, I'm going to be the bad girl.
When you're 9, is this a situation where the person then takes you out for ice cream and says, let's just keep this between us?
Yeah.
And as a result of the circumstances, the quote here is that you sought validation from men who meant me no good.
Yeah. Where'd you get that? That's good. That's good homework research. Yeah, so I didn't know this forever too. I know there's somebody in here who can relate to this. So I was sexually molested, raped at 9, didn't even know what a penis was, hadn't seen one or didn't know anything about it. And raped at 9, taken to get ice cream with blood running down my leg, said don't tell. I didn't, and the reason I didn't tell, and the reason most kids don't tell, is because you know whether it's going to be safe to tell or not.
What was your relationship at that point like with your mother? The woman who wouldn't let you, who acquiesced when her friend said you can't come in?
Well, I knew. The person who, the message to you is you know everything before you're 6. You come into the world knowing everything. That's how kids socially, they learn everything between 0 and 3, language and everything. You come in knowing everything. So, just like I walked into that room, and this has happened to all of you, you walk in a room, you know people have been talking about you. You know that. I walked in that room, I know that I'm not wanted here. I know that my mother, instinctively I know, she should say, let her sleep with me. She doesn't, so I know I can't trust her. So the message to myself in that moment when I walked into Milwaukee, into Miss Miller's house, was you were going to have to take care of yourself. It's going to be you and Jesus. So I knew that I could not share that with anybody because I knew somehow I would get blamed for it. I couldn't explain what had happened, but I knew if I tell, it's going to turn on me and I'm going to be the bad one.
The thing that I've noticed in my own life as a parent, I'm concerned most, and I think this is universal, that my son not be afraid.
Yeah.
And you, up to the age of 9, it seemed like all you were, all you could possibly have been was afraid.
But my validation came, that is how I know that, all these years, that I'm supposed to be doing it. My validation came whenever I was allowed to speak. I did a lot of public speaking in school. I was an orator, on the debate team.
Okay, now you're in Nashville.
Yes.
Now you're in Nashville.
Yeah.
We've jumped to Nashville.
We jumped to Nashville.
Nashville?
So you got to get me to Nashville. Pregnant, 14.
Wait a minute, please, let me tell the story. This is a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
This is huge. You're living with your father. Your father says this, and he doesn't know you're pregnant.
He doesn't know I'm pregnant.
You're 14
I'm sent to Milwaukee when I'm pregnant. My mother kicks me out of the house.
They were going to put you in a detention home in Milwaukee.
Oh, that's a good story too. I was going to go to the detention home. My mother, because I'm like running the streets and doing everything, making her crazy, she said she couldn't handle me anymore. And she's taking me to send me to the detention home. And we get to the detention home, and we have to wait. And they say, and I'm sitting there, and I'm looking through the doors, and I see all these, quote, bad girls. And I have a moment with myself, like now, I'm going to be in the bad girls' home. God, how did this happen to me? Please help me. And the woman comes back and says, I'm sorry, Mrs. Lee, that's my mother saying. Sorry, Mrs. Lee, we don't have any room, and your daughter's going to have to wait 2 weeks before we can take her in. And my mother said, "You are getting your ass out of my house." Her exact words. And sent me to live with my father because the detention home was filled. And that, again, became, that was literally a life-saving moment.
What would happen if they had room for in the detention? You don't know.
I don't know. I probably
Nothing
would not be sitting here today.
Yeah.
Because then you would have been in that environment, trying to overcome the stigma of, quote, the detention home. And so all the other things that happened to me, running for student council, being on the debate team, being an orator, getting into broadcasting by the time I was 16 years old, none of that would have happened had I gone to that detention home.
Listen to this. You're in Nashville, you're living with your father now.
Yes.
This is, I believe, after the pregnancy.
After the pregnancy.
The child is stillborn.
Yes. Not stillborn, but died several days later.
All right. I believe this quote from your father. Rather than see a daughter floating down the Cumberland River, I would rather see my daughter floating down the Cumberland River than bring disgrace on this house.
Right. So I go to my father's house. I know I'm pregnant at 14. When I walk into my father's house, my father lays down the rules of the house. He says, your curfew is going to be 10 o'clock. If you're not home by 10 o'clock, we'll put you out. You're going to go to school, you're a sophomore, you're going to bring home A's and B's because you are not a C student and C's will not be allowed. You will not be allowed to date until you're 16 years old. You will not have sex, he says to me. You will not have sex, and you should know I would rather see a daughter of mine floating down the Cumberland River than to get pregnant and bring disgrace on this family. He says to me, as I know I'm pregnant. I don't know how far along I was at the time, so this was in September, baby was born in January, so I was pretty far along. And he didn't know me, so I was covering myself up with coats and sweaters and pretending to be cold in the house and going to church, and I can't sit, I need 2 coats. I hid that until my ankle swelled one day, and I got sent to the doctor, and they sent me to a pediatrician, and the pediatrician says, either this is the biggest tumor I've ever seen, or you are pregnant. Do you know what that means? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, have you been doing anything to get pregnant? And I said, oh, I don't know. And he said, please don't force us to have to take you upstairs to get an x-ray because it will hurt this baby because I think you're pregnant. And the thought of having to tell my father sent me into labor.
To you, humans' ability to be cruel to other humans or the ability to withstand cruelty?
Certainly, with all that I've seen and experienced from other people's stories, I'm no longer surprised at humans' ability to be cruel. What amazes me is humans' ability to be resilient in the face of such cruelty.
Nothing more resilient than the human spirit.
Because, what I've endured, everybody has a story. And your story is equally as valuable and as important as my story. My story just helped define and shape me, as does everybody's story. But, I've heard some, you talk to people who lived through the Rwandan crisis, where the person who you were having a barbecue with, you were, had over to your house the night before, and then they are with a machete at your door, killing your children.
That's right.
And now those women are able to sit side by side with people who slaughtered their families. I don't even know what that is. So I'm constantly amazed at our ability.
Did you like your grandfather?
My grandfather?
Yeah.
I didn't know him. He was an enigma. I now understand he probably had, probably had Alzheimer's.
This is your father. I'm sorry. Did you like him?
Yes. I would say, I was appreciative. And for all of my life, I have been ultimately grateful to my father because there was just that one time in the poodle skirt. And there were lots of stories about my mother having other guys.
Would this guy let you sleep in the house where your mother would not? Where your mother acquiesced? Would this guy have forced the issue and let you in the house?
Yeah, he would let me in the house. My father would. But this is the thing. My father accepted the fact that I was his daughter, and there was no DNA test to take back then. He just said, okay, I slept with you that one time. Okay, I'll take responsibility.
So you're living in his house now. You become the high school state champion in public speaking. Most popular in high school.
Most popular.
Misfire prevention.
That was it.
Come on.
Turning point.
Come on.
Turning point.
President of the student council. You go to the White House, some student government trip. You're
My
at the White House.
God, Dave. Research.
You're 16 years old, you go to WVOL, and they're taking you on a tour, they let you read some copy. They hire a 16-year-old high school kid to do the news. 1971, you're named Miss Black Tennessee. Does that pageant still exist?
I don't think so.
And then you're made the news anchor. You go to Tennessee State University, you get a job at WTUF-TV as the news anchor. So you understand why this is stunning. This human experience of yours is stunning. Because it's going in one direction at the speed of light, and then suddenly it turns around.
Well, Dave, I have to tell you, I never thought of it that way before. I never thought of it as stunning, because it just is my life. But maybe it is. Do you think stunning, really?
I think it is stunning.
I don't know, it all seems to, one thing led to the next thing. My father said to me when the baby died, I never had a name for the baby because I was trying to disassociate myself from the baby. I was pretending I wasn't pregnant. I didn't know what I was going to do other than kill myself when this baby came. And my father said, I remember him walking into the room saying to me, it was night, the baby has died. This is your second chance because you were going to have to come out of school. Now you can continue in school and nobody knows that this has happened. There's only a few people in our family who know that has happened. So you can go back to school and you can take this chance and you can use it for all that it's worth, or you can fall down the same path that you were on before you came here. And I really did. I saw it as a second chance.
So all of your ability and desires and resources to that point have been smothered.
Yes.
And now the pillow had been lifted from your face.
Right.
Here's a question I don't know if I can ask. I've wondered about this. You gave birth to a child.
Yes.
Lived for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That never goes away, does it?
Interesting. I just was doing an acting exercise, which I hadn't done. I'd never had an acting coach before this film that I did this summer. And it's not something that I allow myself to think about. I hadn't gone there. And she brought it up and said, I think you need to deal with it. You need to literally bury that child. So we went through this, this exercise where I actually did. And I said to the acting coach when she started talking to me, I go, there's no reason to try to get me to be emotional here, because I don't have any emotions about this. I buried all of my feelings about it because I really felt like that baby's life, that baby coming into the world, really gave me new life. And that's how I processed it for myself. But I did. I have now gone through the letting that have the space.
Was the pregnancy the result of consensual activity?
No.
The pregnancy was the result of rape.
Not rape, but it was. This is the thing. Anybody who's been molested and knows that you took a path of now sexual experimentation and, flirting with men or dating excessively and so forth, all of it is connected. I used to think, I wanted to believe the story that everybody wanted to tell of me, that I was the bad girl. That's the reason why I didn't confess the very first time I was raped, because I'm now a bad girl. I'm going to be put in the detention home, so I'm a bad girl. I'm having sex and I shouldn't be having sex. I'm a bad girl. Well, all of that happened because I've been raped. You've been molested from the time you're 10 to 14. One of my cousin's boyfriend lived in the house, and there you can talk about your mom too. But your mom, from what I read about your mother, she was the mom we all dreamed of. Did she not like have cookies and milk for you when you came home?
Mom had cookies.
Yes. Was she not?
One of the great things about my mother was she really knew how to cook.
She did.
But going back to...
But she was there. Wasn't she like June Cleaver? Wasn't she?
She was not June Cleaver. My mom was not very demonstrative. My mom was taciturn on a good day. That's with a couple of drinks she had enough. My mother was there used to be something called a razor strop. It was a leather band. My mother's father beat her with the razor strop. My parents spanked me. So there is that you and I sort of have.
Dave, I remember being a kid just hoping to be spanked. Like, God, I wish I could be like spanked, like other kids are spanked. That's not a, no, I was literally beat ton. I was beaten. I mean, when you have welted blood, that's being beaten. So, but, you know, that's what happened in my life. I'm doing okay.
Yeah, that's right. She's doing okay.
I'm doing okay. And I saw them hand signaling each other in the audience. And I realized in that moment that, oh, what I think I'm doing, I'm not doing. I think I'm exposing them. I think I'm having a conversation so people can, you know, we can call out the hate. And what I'm really doing is giving them a platform. Later, the 25th year of the Oprah show, I had the two guys on who were doing the signal. They've been in jail and they had a really rough life. Being in the Klan and a skinhead, not advisable. But anyway, they came back on, and he actually said to me that we used that show as a recruitment.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. And so I felt that during the show. The Klan, would you believe, became an instrument for me to really make a big change in the way I operated in television. Seeing that show, a couple of things did. We were doing, what do you call it, confrontational television, where you try to get on, I mean, in the 80s, you could get people to come on television and cry and tell their stories. And there was a woman who we thought it was such a great booking, the producers. They got the husband with the girlfriend, which now they do this every week on one of the housewife shows, but they had back in the 80s, it was unheard of to have a husband who was having an affair on stage with the girlfriend who he's having the affair with and the wife. And we were live at the time. And she knew about the girlfriend and was trying to convince him why people do this on television. I'll give you the answer to that in a moment. But the husband says to his wife on television, and we are live, she is pregnant.
Oh, hell no.
To this day, that moment just went through the core of me, and I thought, now we have, I looked at the wife's face, his wife's face, and I thought, this is wrong. This should never happen under my watch. I will never be a part of this again.
Does it trouble you now that this is fairly common, a mainstay of television?
Yeah. I would not use the word trouble. I don't give it any of my energy. Am I disappointed at Edward R. Murrow's defining meaning for what we could do with television? Use it as an instrument to really not just inform, but to uplift people. I'm disappointed in that. But I am old enough now that I don't waste any energy thinking about what other people should be doing. I just try to do what I can. I know it's a waste of time, waste of time and conversation talking about what the Real Housewives are doing or not doing.
So let me ask you this. There is that level of television, and it seems to be all present. It seems to be increasing. And this is a question I ask myself, and my wife discusses it all the time with regard to our son. Does it make a difference in the world, in the society, or at the end?
What, television?
No. The programming that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Does it make a difference, or at the end of the day, does it not make a difference?
It absolutely makes a difference. For people who say that it doesn't make a difference, you're absolutely wrong about that. Because if it didn't make a difference, advertisers would be spending billions of dollars a year for 15 and 30-second commercials to impress you. So to say that it doesn't make an impression is absolutely not true.
Well, is that a lasting impression?
And I'd say it's a lasting impression. I would say that it is harder to raise your son in the environment of everything being okay, of sort of a base level attitude toward morals. And that's not me being a prude about it. It's just when it's okay.
Sorry, what was that word?
Prude.
Oh, prude.
When it's okay, when the message that you're sending to a general society is that it's okay to be rude and base and common and vulgar, it cannot be a good message. It just can't. What you're not doing is a great indicator of what you should be doing. So I think your generation, more so than any other generation, feels like you should have what you want when you want it. You're going to come out and you're going to have to be living your life's purpose immediately. That is not the case, because a lot of growing to your purpose is about figuring out what the true purpose really is. And the road to that, the path to that, you still got to eat. You need to work at what is the true calling, but also understand that not everybody gets it immediately. And doing something that doesn't feel like that's what you're supposed to be doing is an indication that, oh, maybe I should be going in this direction. So it was very hard for me in news because my father kept saying, 22, you're making 22,000. You're not going to find a job like that. And Gail and I used to say, oh my God, you're 22, you're making 22,000. Maybe when you're 40, you can make 40,000. I believed, I'd never imagined the life that I'm living now, but I believed that it could be better than that. And that what did it matter if I was making 40,000? And I hated it every day. I just hated it. So I always felt a dis-ease with myself as a news reporter. I always felt like I was exploiting people. Gail, on the other hand, does not. Yeah.
All right, this other thing, and look, the kid keeps bringing these out, and we'll get to them, maybe not this week, but you got my attention as a human being when I read about your school in South Africa. It was 2000 as a result of meeting with Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Then I realized that you were not a television personality, you were transcendent. You meant more than communicating on television. And that's when my skepticism, just because, I don't know, I'm skeptical. See, I still haven't gotten to these things. I've got a lot of paperwork here to do.
You tell me when you sit
All
down.
right, I think it's up to Miss Winfrey how much longer she's willing to spend. I have to get to some of these, honestly. I'm sorry.
I am delighted.
Okay.
Please continue. Nice to see you. Great to see you.
She runs the place. Here's one other thing that I was taken by, and this is just symbolic of how desperate life can be and how you're responding to it. School students in the school student bodies endure a death of a primary caregiver once a week. Once a week.
At least.
These kids, mother or father, once a week dies.
Yes. Well, you all know that in sub-Saharan Africa, in many countries, and South Africa is still leading because for years they had a president who said that there was no such thing as AIDS. And so there is an entire generation of the mid-level people who are from their 30s, 40s, early mid-20s, wiped out, just gone. And those would be, the ages that my girls, that their parents are.
Do you think, I've mentioned this to you in the past, I listen to the BBC,
Yes.
nonstop, the World Service. One horror story after another regarding Africa. Civil war, droughts, famine, lack of medicine, AIDS epidemics. And we're talking about incalculable numbers.
Yes.
Is there, and in South Africa, there's some hope there.
Yeah.
Is there hope for these other, what's just...
Well, this is what I learned. I'm going to keep the story. Anybody who gets anything, your life is going to expand when you figure out how to give that back. Guaranteed. So I was trying to figure out how to give it back. When I first came to Chicago, I started a Boys and Girls Club of my own, Girls Club of my own, with just the producers trying to help girls in the projects. That didn't work. You know why? Because we had to take them back to the project. No matter where we went, we take them skiing, we take them that didn't work. I started a program where I was going to try to take out 100 families out of the projects on my own, give them new housing, give them jobs, do life. That didn't work. And so when I finally decided to build a school, I had learned the lessons of trying to give back. Because I tried to give back, failed, tried to give back, failed. Because no problem will ever be solved unless you change the way people think about it. No problem. So I learned, and the reason why I'm so involved in education and involved from the ground up is because you can't just write a check if you really, really, really want to see something get done. You have to be engaged yourself and make sure that whatever vision that you hold, this is no matter what project you're doing, whatever vision that you hold gets executed according to the level of your heart's desire and not everybody else's. So for me, changing the way these girls thought, and I knew I couldn't do it even if I built a school where they had to go home at the end of the day. Because now you're in your poverty-stricken environment, and now you've got the violent, alcoholic fathers, and now you've got all of that stuff to deal with. Not an environment that's conducive for learning.
Right.
That's why I built a boarding.
Get into the communications field.
That's you.
I would say, whatever you do, please don't try it. Please, I'm begging you. Go to work at Tom McCann or something. Leave us alone. Dave, what are your hopes of Ball State concerning emerging media and communications in all areas of study? As I said to Oprah earlier, I believe that this facility is at the beginning of the much sought after, hoped for nexus of traditional media and the brand new emerging media, and thereby will form the central nervous system for the world. So that's what I think. Oprah, how do the childhood and young adult experiences influence you as a philanthropist and role model today?
Answer that.
Yeah. Oprah, what does starting your own network, OWN, O-W-N, mean to you? Does it help the ending of your iconic TV show? Does it help with the ending of your iconic TV show?
Does it help with the ending of it? It's far more challenging than I imagined it would be. I look at every single obstacle that occurs in my life, every negative challenge, every positive challenge, and I ask the thing when it shows up. This is a good test for you guys. When the thing shows up, you ask it, what is it here to teach me? So whenever you're in the midst of whatever is going, what is it here to teach me? And when you can answer that question, what is it here to teach me? Because everything is happening for a reason. How people say that all the time, oh, it happens for me. It is. If you can answer the question of what is the real reason why it's happening, things sort of settle out and settle down, because the universe, God, all those forces, in the energy that is a part of our lives, is waiting for every single person to rise to the fullest, highest expression of yourself as a human being. That's the goal, is to become the fullest, highest, most truthful expression of yourself as a human being. So I look at all of the challenges, and I get upset when media people write stuff, and somebody even wrote something today, very upsetting, because my take on it wasn't the interpretation that they had. But I also say, what is that there to teach me? What is it that there to teach me? So the own experience, I chose to leave in 25 years because I didn't want to be sitting in the seat fighting it out with other daytime talk shows for a piece of a number that no longer existed. And so what I really want is a platform that allows me to speak to the world in a way that you can hear that there is a oneness and a connection, that you can hear and see through our programming, Super Soul Sunday, which is linked around the world, 11 o'clock in the morning, where I sit with all of these wonderful thought leaders and spiritual leaders and teachers, where you can hear and see that there's an opportunity for you to rise to the level at which your life was created to be. So that's why I have a platform. I spent a long time trying to figure that out for myself. And I came to the conclusion that most of my family sees me as a bank. Certainly everybody on my mother's side of the family sees me as a bank, so I really wasn't joking.
See you as a bank?
Bank, yeah. So when I said, my family says send money, my mother says send money, that is her theme in life. But I recognize that I am, just like as you will be, and particularly those of you who are the first in your family to succeed or be successful, you become the First National Bank. Everybody thinks you're the one that's going to solve all their problems. And so I have a measured existence with my family. I finally figured out that I get to decide what I want that relationship to be. And I figured it out by watching and paying attention to the Oprah Winfrey show. So many people would come on the show over the years, living from dysfunction and going through I want to meet my father, after their father treated them like, and want to meet their mother and want to be around their family because they wanted things to be the way they were. And one of the great lessons that I have come to know is that forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could be any different. Somebody said that around 1990 something on the show. And in that moment, little hairs stood up on my arm because, wow, because I used to think forgiveness meant you gotta go to Thanksgiving dinner, now you gotta go sit in the house, now you gotta let those people in. Forgiveness really is what you do for yourself. You forgive and let go of trying to hold on to a past, hoping that it could have been different, so that you don't live in the space of, I wish my mother had been like Dave's mother. I wish my mother had been the kind of mother who understood. I wish. So once I came to that, and it was the 90s, I decided what I would do for my family, that I get to decide. You don't get to call me every week, as you all will experience at some point, if you're very successful. You don't get to call me every week and tell me how much money you need. So I had a dinner at my house. I called it Dinner of a Lifetime. And I had all the family over. And I brought the lawyers over. And we sat down and I said, you're going to get this, and 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 don't ask me ever again.
I know when she leaves here tonight, she's on her way to South Africa. So
Take her dress off.
I feel personally touched and lucky to spend this kind of time with this woman. I have one question for you, and I thought this was very sweet. This question, I think, was something that Gene Siskel used to ask. which is, what do you know for sure?
What I know for sure is that every one of us is born, come to the planet Earth to make our mark. And how you choose to do that is really up to you, but to know that there is a mark to be made is what is significant. And I'm still making my mark.